Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm quite certain that you've said this to somebody or have heard it from somebody, but you're acting like a child. You're acting like a child. You are. We all are. Right now, we're all acting like kids. And what am I talking about here? We're piloted by what influenced us as small children. And that also influences our adult decisions now. It's crazy, but it's been scientifically proven and it holds you back, gives you limiting beliefs. Inner child work is what we're going to talk about today. And we're doing that with an amazing transformation and spiritual coach that helps you claim your inner peace. River Zuwiala joins us once again. How are you doing today?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Acting like a child.
Awesome. As long as you don't let the inner child overrun your life, then you're good. But you have to let it come out to play.
For sure. For essential. Um, let's just explain what we're talking about here in terms of the child within us that is holding us back.
What would you like to know?
Well, it's my understanding that between the ages of birth and roughly 7, mostly everything that you've experienced during that period is how you act now. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's what molds us. So if we have an absent parent, let's say, where we have a parent that's actually there but ignores us, ignores our needs, then it's going to stifle how we present ourselves later on in life. We won't know how to get our needs met. If we keep on asking and we get our needs denied, or if it's sometimes there and sometimes it's not there, it's very confusing. Like I was saying the last time I spoke with you about how if we have a parent who is there for us at one point and then they're not there, or little Johnny comes home from school and dad says go out to play, it's a beautiful day, but the next day dad seems like he's in the same good mood, but he says get in your room, do your homework, you can't go out to play right now, and then he gets in trouble. So it's that kind of dynamic. And not only that, but if you've also gone through any kind of traumas, that's going to play on how you present yourself as an adult too, because it's going to affect your intelligence, your emotional intelligence.
Even the things, something as simple, and this is, correct us if it's wrong or you disagree, something as simple as, every parent has pretty much said this: money doesn't grow on trees. Be careful. Save your money? Now you could hear that when you were 7 years old, and that comment could hold you back from making money or making the money that you truly deserve, because subconsciously you think that money is scarce. Money is scarce. It's not good. There's not enough around. Is that also an example of what's going on here?
Would you like to say that's called an indoctrinated belief?
I don't know what that means.
Here we go. This is why I started all this, Steve. Indoctrinations, we have them everywhere in our life, in religion, in school, in our parenting, in our childhood, everywhere. And that what you just spoke of is an indoctrinated belief. If somebody posts something on you and that's their opinion, and you don't have the ability to fight with it, and you assume that that's the way it is, then you're going to have that belief stuck in your head until you learn better. AKA why people look for coaches. They look for life coaches because they understand that there's something that is holding them back and they can't pinpoint it. And therefore they go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, or a coach. They go there to find out what is going on, what is their blocks. And yes, that would be a block. That would be a belief that stifles our growth. So my comment, I just want to say this real quick.
Sure.
When somebody said money doesn't grow on trees, I'm like, well, where did the paper come from?
Ooh, crafty.
I know, right? It's terrible, but yeah, sure.
But it's true.
Mhm.
And it's interesting how one child could hear a comment like that, pick anyone. Another child could hear it and it doesn't even affect them, whereby the other one, it made a mark on them and kind of piloted them as an adult because every child is different. Do you feel that when a child is born, you have two children, two different parents, different ethnic backgrounds, maybe speak different languages, um, factor out the DNA stuff, the genetics, put that aside. You have two kids. They're the same. They're essentially the same, like an empty slate. And as life goes on with their family and parents, then they start realizing things and how they're going to navigate things based on what is around them. But essentially, are they both basically the same, clean slate?
They are clean slate, except for the epigenetics, yes. The the child, they don't know anything, and they have to be groomed into what their belief systems are. So anything that happens to them, especially up to the age of 7, is going to be something that is going to be more unconscious and subconscious, a
Mm.
programming that's going to stick with them rather than them consciously knowing.
The inner
So
child, does that come from, you hear these terms, oh, she's got daddy issues or he's got mommy issues. That's coming from inner child as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. We are molded by what people model to us.
Yeah.
So yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
I I'm connected to somebody, friend of mine, just got divorced, and his wife wanted to get divorced. And I'm connecting back to what we just talked about. And when she was younger, and I know the family, when she was younger, her father just left. She was estranged. Years later, my friend got married to her, and everything was excuse me, everything was good. She got back together with her dad. Everything was great. Fast forward, one day she told him, I don't want to, I want to get divorced. Shocked the family, shocked the kids, everybody. And then as he traced it back, when her father got cancer and then passed away, by the way, she deployed the divorce like 6 months after he passed away. He found out that she had been cheating along the way. And then the topper of the story is that he showed me pictures of her father, who I knew, and who she's with now. It's the same person. They look the same. Same features, same hair. That's a slightly younger version, same ethnic background, same hobbies. And, he's trying to piece it all together and figure it out, going to therapy and everything. But essentially, what he said to me is it's like she did the same exact thing her father did. And she was looking for approval in other men. And that's why she strayed from the relationship. And she's back with dad again in so many words. Would you say that, I don't want to say textbook, but does that sound like a classic inner child not healed? And this is what became of a relationship?
Absolutely. This is where people have a tendency, if they're not healing their inner child wounds, what will happen is they're going to try to reenact things. And they're not even consciously aware of it if they don't work on it.
Yeah.
That if they try to reenact something in order to get their needs met, or to figure out how to get their needs met,
Yeah.
or to figure out what happened because they didn't get their needs met. It's a kind of a cycle. And if we talk about like this being inside the cyclone, like having inner peace, when you're inside the eye of that storm, you can see everything clearly because the eye, the all-seeing eye, or the pineal gland, if you will,
Third
the
eye.
third eye, yes, that's where you see everything, all the chaos around you. The calm is when you can stay calm and peaceful and see everything for what it actually is all around you. So when you're having these issues, you're not like the inner child is not in the eye of the storm because they don't feel like they have any support. It's all in the cyclone around them, but they don't realize that there's any way to get to the eye to find that peace. And they're always constantly searching for it, whether they know it or
Mm.
not.
I think that's the $50 tip coming from Jackie right now. They're always searching for it and they don't know that they are. I was in a relationship years ago And she always would want to press my button, like just loved confrontation. And I'm like, chill, this is it. I'm low key. We figure it out. We work it out. It's all good. But always like would go at me. And then I figured out it's probably because her father was abusive. He was verbally abusive and more to mom, a lot of yelling. And my opinion is that was her comfortable spot. That's where because we would gravitate toward what we're familiar with, what we feel good with.
Do you know why that is? Is
Um, I I have an idea, but you tell.
Okay. Um, when we have these kinds of traumas and we don't work through them, we don't have anybody to talk to because we don't know any better. It's an indoctrination of what's going on. Then our brain will find a pathway to protect us. It's like
Hmm.
the ego at play. So, being that the ego is at play and trying to safeguard us from pain, our brains will rewire to a pathway that makes sense at that time, whether it's to block something or a chemical reaction that's going to stop it from getting to the place where it needs to be deciphered. So the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, everything's stored in the hippocampus, but then when it needs to get deciphered, it's like the hippocampus is the book and the prefrontal cortex of the front brain reads the book. And if the pathway is not met properly, then your prefrontal cortex can't decipher what it really actually is. So the ego tries to protect you in a way that you don't like confrontation. You don't like to be up against things that feel uncomfortable. So people have a tendency to stop going there. They don't want confrontation. They don't want to talk about things, that's where you have growth. That's where you have communication issues if you don't move forward with it.
Hmm.
So that connection is necessary to rewire the brain. That's why we call it rewiring, because that pathway has been cut off somehow.
You're not going to want to talk to anybody unless you realize there's something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's how do you go deep, River, in figuring out what's going on there? Is it through a series of questions? Is it energy modalities? What's going on?
I have a tendency to do things a bit different because I am a spiritual coach, that I will take people in a meditation to connect with their inner child. This is my favorite part of the work that I do. Take them in, I guide them, but they take me to the place that makes sense to them. And they could be
Hmm.
standing in front of a parent who was absent, or they can see things in a different way. When they go in, they can bring things up from the hippocampus, from that storage unit that they have. I'm not putting ideas in their head. I'm taking them to a specific period of time that they mentioned, and then bring up questions, certain questions that's going to make them understand things in a way that's going to guide them. And they're going to draw their own roadmap back to connecting with the prefrontal cortex to that reader who's going to decipher things in a different way than they already knew before in order to start making sense of it. So they have these aha moments. And those aha moments are what rewires the brain.
And what you just said, I was just going to ask you how many aha moments come up, and it's got to feel great for you when somebody has that realization of, oh, that's why I'm doing that.
Absolutely. I have not worked with one client that they haven't had at least one or two and even more aha moments. I
Hmm.
like to, when I'm working with somebody, if they're in really deep, I will stay with them there. And if something else comes up, because things always come up, you could work on this for a lifetime. But in my area of expertise, I like to guide them to empower them into learning how to deal with things on their own so that they can come to me when they need to. And they can work with me for a period of time till they feel strong enough that they want to work on themselves. And they will come back to me again and again, periodically, but it won't be like a lifelong, like, I need you, I need you, I need you. I've worked actually with a girl who went to a psychiatrist, and this psychiatrist came to me and she said, well, if my client is cured, totally cured, which is unheard of because I've had her for a client for 20 years. What's going to happen to me if I send my clients to you and they all get cured? And I thought, oh my God, that is the most selfish thing I've ever heard anybody say in my life, because that is what you're supposed to be doing this work for, to help people to get out, not for them to pay for your house, your car, your yacht, or whatever. No, it's to help them. My center of my whole being is compassion. I understand people suffering, and I just had a conversation earlier today with someone about them seeing somebody sitting in a car and wondering if they should go over to help them because they're slumped over their through the window, and they're looking out their window and they're thinking they should go help this poor person, and they don't want to get involved, but at the same time their compassion for their suffering was the same. So they went out, and the girl was like understanding and appreciative that somebody came to so-called rescue her or care about her, because she wasn't used to that kind of behavior.
And that probably goes back to her childhood.
Absolutely. It goes
Mm.
back to when somebody's in a situation like that, something has happened either to them, but actually everything happens for you, not to you.
Mm.
But we have to get to a place in our own mind to understand that to be a truth. So most people who are stuck in the traumas think of something as if it happened to them. And because they want to do the blame, the shame, the escapism, because they're in a place of overwhelm and fear. And they put on these masks to try to look good towards other people because they're fearful of being judged and criticized.
Which is so universal in everything,
Mhm.
and not to minimize anybody's situation, but um, we all walk around feeling like we're not good enough in some regard, some way, shape, and form. Even what appears to be the most confident person on the planet probably feels that they're not good enough in some area, and it goes back to their childhood. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Everything that we do now can be linked to our childhood. Even if you're going through a divorce, let's say, if you stayed in the relationship for a long period of time that was overdue to be broken up because you saw red flags here, there, and everywhere, then you're just trying to play out things that happened in your childhood where you wanted your parents to stay together, or you saw your parents stay together
Mm.
and you think you should be staying together.
You're prolonging it.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's an interesting one because you see a lot of couples stay together for the kids. Um, but if you start asking questions, as you're saying, one of them, if not both, probably had some challenges as a child in with their parents, or their parents, split up or whatever the case may be. When you identify, I call it connect the dots, why are you acting this way now? And what was childhood like? What do you do to heal? What do you do to help somebody heal from that?
When I take people in to go in to meet their inner child, I have them sit with that inner child at that particular age, and they will see things play out that they didn't recognize before. So let's say somebody had a bulimia problem or some kind of eating issue, and it comes down to how they asked for food, but the person ignored them, or they told them to get it themselves. Or I have had a
Wow.
situation where they were in the kitchen. They remember being like 5 years old, being in the kitchen, and their mother and brother at the same time were calling them fat. You're 5 years old. You're supposed to be heavy. You're supposed to have baby weight. You're not, how can a little child be called fat? My sister has actually said the same thing. She was offended when she remembers a story when she was little, being in a grocery store, and she wanted chips, and some lady told her that she didn't need them because she didn't need to gain any more weight. What kind of person does that to a child's brain, right?
The
So
kind of person that doesn't realize that it can have a life blank and long effect on them. And
absolutely.
And I get it. I mean, you're a parent?
Yes, I am.
Okay. If knowing now what you know, would you have parented differently?
Oh, you have no idea. You
Don't
have
even
no idea.
you don't even have to finish. I'm right there with you. I just had this conversation with somebody, I think it was yesterday. And not that I feel you, any of us, did anything wrong. We did the best with what we had from our parents. And, you improvise a little bit here and there. You might be a parent that, jokes around with your kid, make up goofy little names. You have fun. It's, just, the fun dad. But then you don't realize that they could internalize that and take it to heart, literally take it to their heart. Um, and you're just being fun. It's what you learn. And by the way, I want to reflect back on something you said before in terms of confronting your inner child. I did hypnotherapy and all different modalities, and hypnotherapy was just one of them. There's other things I've done, speaking to people like yourself, but under hypnosis, side note, by the way, for anybody, I could have stopped at any moment. It's not like I was under a trance. I faced myself when I was younger, and I was told to reassure my younger self, like, I'll always be there for you. I got your back. Don't worry. Big difference. Big difference.
Yes. So when I take people in to meet their inner child like that,
Sure.
depending on the age and stuff like that, I will even do rebirthing with them sometimes.
Wow.
So, but when I take them in to meet their inner child, I have them hold their inner child, and they'll see their inner child needing the love and then giving them what they need that they didn't get from their parent. So, like, you can say that's reparenting, but the inner child work doesn't necessarily have to be with the parent, like telling the child that this happened with the parent, like the father or the caregiver or the mother, but this is the work that we do with this specific child, loving the child themselves. But when
Mm,
you go in and you reparent, then you specifically rely on either the masculine or the feminine. The masculine is going to be electric and the feminine is going to be magnetic. And that's going to be what binds the energy. So if you want to say the power of three, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and that kind of stuff, um, it all has to do with the parent and the child. The
wow.
sun within us is actually the light within us.
You said reparent, and I was thinking it as you were saying it. Like it's like you're reading my mind. And all these
That's what I
terms,
do.
yeah, all these terms really describe what we're doing. We are being parents to ourselves, our inner child. River, if somebody wants to maybe book a discovery session, if I remember correctly, it's a free discovery session just to have a conversation.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. How do
They
they
can,
do that?
they can contact me via phone, 610-413-7075, or my other phone number that is a new one. And I believe you put that up last time I spoke to you, 717-984-7911. Helpline 911.
Love it.
There's a reason for every number in my life, Steve.
Oh, I get you. And once you start, it's a whole other conversation. Um, Looking at signs and why things happen and the synergy and all of that. Fabulous talking with you. This is not just important. This is everything. What we talked about today. It's so many people are being held back in life from their childhood. And once you figure it out, it's like the chains come off and you're like, oh, wow, I'm literally a new person. Amazing.
Yes, like a
Thank
breath of fresh air. And
exactly.
also innerpeaceproject.net. You can get a hold of me there as well.
Gotcha.
Check out my website.
Wonderful talking with you today.
Thanks, Steve. Wonderful talking to you too.
Appreciate it. And we'll catch up next time. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.